Introduction to Continuity and Budgeting for the Props Department. My name is Natalie and I'm on the marketing team here at SyncOnSet. I have with me my colleague Rachel from the account management team who will be leading you through today's tutorial. Now let's take a quick look at what we're going to cover today. Today's webinar is designed for prop masters, assistant prop masters, and onsets, and we are going to cover Crew Tools continuity, Crew Tools budgeting, and finally we will recap with some best practices. Now, while Rachel will be leading you through the demo today, I will be monitoring for any submitted questions, so please feel free to write in with questions as you think of them. You may submit questions by using that Q&A function you should see located at the bottom of your screen, and we'll take some time after the demo today to answer questions. Following today's webinar, you are going to receive a few resources from us. This includes a recording of today's webinar, as well as a link to the Crew Tools FAQ page, which has some helpful facts on there. And we're also going to provide you a general link to the SyncOnSet support site, and this is a new support site this year. It is support.synconset.com, and that's where you can find all of our help articles, helpful how-to videos, recordings of past webinars, and announcements for upcoming webinars. We're also going to provide you with a link to the productioncommunity.com, which is an entertainment partners resource where you can find their Master Series webinars, which cover the business of production and production technology, as well as a community forum where you connect with other industry professionals and much more. And with that, I'm going to pass things over to Rachel, and we'll get started with our demo.
Thanks, Natalie. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Before I jump right into Crew Tools, we'll just cover a quick agenda of what we'll be walking through. So again, this is all about props and creating and tracking inventory as well as budgeting. So we'll take a look at just your generic scene index and scene view, some general navigation within Crew Tools, how to add props. So how you're going to be able to add props to a scene, a character, the inventory index, and then finally budgeting. And we'll also cover how to export reports as well as navigate the gallery throughout the production. So without further ado, I will go ahead and jump into Crew Tools. Perfect. So to start, I'm actually on our home website, and we're going to go ahead and log in using the icon in the top right corner. If you have never worked with us before, you can go ahead and register to create a username and password. I'll just log in for today. And this is going to bring us to our My Productions page, which is essentially our home page, or where we'll be able to see a list of all of the projects we have on our account today. And this is going to be broken out by tabs, features on the left, episodics on the right. And you can jump into your project by just clicking the blue hyperlink. So I will go ahead and jump into episode 1 from here. Now, I'll cover a few general navigation points before we dive in. So starting in the top left corner, we have our product switcher. This is going to allow you to navigate between continuity and budgeting. And then the title of your production is going to be hyperlinked in blue. If you click this, you'll be brought into an activity feed as well as just general subscription details. And then moving further to the right, we have our universal search bar. This is definitely a best practice or recommendation that we have when just being able to easily navigate to things within the account. So you can search for scenes, characters, inventory pieces, actor information, really anything that you log within the production. Oh, the film strip to the right is going to bring you back to that My Productions page. So if you needed to add a script, revise a script, or just toggle to another project you have on your account, you can do so using the film strip icon here. And then the plus person icon is to our admin panel, which just gives you the ability to add users and modify their permissions along the way. And then lastly, off to the right here is going to be this gear shift icon, which will bring you to our help center. I definitely recommend bookmarking this, and I'll just click into here really quickly to show everyone what this looks like. But it's got resources available, everything from webinars, workflow recommendations, frequently answered questions, or I'm sorry, yeah, answers to frequently asked questions. But this is a great place to just click this star and bookmark it for your project. And if you still can't find the answer to any of your questions in our Help Center, I did just want to take time to point out our intercom chat bubble at the bottom. This is going to give you the ability to chat into our support team. So amazing to have this as a resource and leverage their expertise during our office hours, which are Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. But moving back up to navigation on our second row, I wanted to point out that if you are on an episodic, you can use this drop down to toggle to and from different episodes. You can also select multiple episodes at a time now. So if you are block shooting, this definitely comes in handy. And if you are leveraging this account or sharing it with other departments, so perhaps maybe you're also added to set deck, maybe you're working synonymously with their team, you'd also be able to toggle back and forth between departments here if you are added into their production. But we'll just stick into episode 101 for right now. And then the following tabs off to the right are just the places that will be logging the production data. So I'll be covering this throughout the rest of the webinar, and we'll start on the Scenes tab or the Scene Index, which is actually the page we're on right now. So if you are on a shared breakdown or sharing this with multiple departments, it's likely that someone from your production's already uploading the scripts for you and for all departments. This is usually the person that's also handling things like updating shoot dates, any script revisions, uploading new episodes, things like that. But if you are using Crew Tools as a single department, I recommend our webinar, Introduction to Crew Tools. This is available on our Help Center as well, but this gives you, or this will dive into the script upload process in a little bit more detail. But in props, the idea with Crew Tools is that you create inventory once, and you're able to use this and track it in multiple ways throughout the production. So there's ultimately 4 ways that you can create inventory in Crew Tools. We can do so from a scene, from a character, from our main inventory index, and lastly from budgeting, which I'll jump over to after continuity. Let's first jump into a scene and talk about how to add props to individual scenes. And I'm just navigating to scene 1 by clicking the hyperlink. Anything in blue is just going to bring us to a page with more information. And I want to start on the right-hand side and talk about some of the details that we're pulling in from that script breakdown. So everything from the scene index is pulled in for scene 1 off to the right. You have any photos. These are going to just be any photos tagged to scene 1. And then a field for scene notes. So this is typically something that affects all props in the scene. So if it's raining and you want to remind your onsets to bring extra towels that day, a great place to do so is right here. And then with all of that off to the right, we have the main part of the page to focus on the characters and props in that scene. So we have principal and background broken out into 2 categories. And then below that is going to be a props inventory table for all the props that we have in that scene. On this inventory table, the blue add icon is going to give you the ability to create a new prop, add from an existing prop that you've already created, so anything from the inventory index, or maybe you have repetitive scenes and you just want to copy the same group of props from one scene to another. All options here on the scene view, but I did want to point out that if we do create a new prop, typically we see that there are multiple places where you can add information. So we want to give you as many fields available as possible to track this at the level of detail that's going to make the most sense for you and your department. But of course, as you saw me kind of go to this gear shift icon in the top right, it's very easy to customize this based on what you're looking to log or document. So if maybe we didn't need some of these fields here, you can see that this is also a very clean look, and it really gives our team an understanding of what information we're looking for them to add. And then off to the right-hand side, you can add this item to a character closet. You can provide a status or category. I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail in a minute. And you can also log things for post-production, so storage location, wrap box, or a disposition. But as you manage scene props, you can also use this choose columns icon, and this then will display the fields or pieces of information you've logged. So depending on what you're logging for each item, it's just easy to customize and make sure that you're seeing all the information on your screen. And lastly, on a scene view, if we just scroll back up to the top, we do have arrows here, which just go from scene to scene, so you can continue this cadence and build out the scenes that you have, or I'm sorry, the props that you have for each scene throughout your script. Now, we also talked about the fact that you can add this to a character as well. We refer to this as adding props to a character closet. So let's take a look at this with Richard Anderson as an example. So very similar to how we have a scene view set up, all of this character's information is going to be logged to the right-hand side. Any photos we've tagged him in is going to be below. And then, of course, if we do have any specific notes for Richard, we want our team to understand or always have on hand, a great place for that as well. But now with the middle of the page, this leaves us a list of the scenes that Richard is featured in, and then any props that he's using in each scene. So if we are building out or adding props to a scene like we were previously, it's really easy to either open these up with Edit All, or we can edit a scene individually and add props from here. So just another option to add in scene props for a character. So for example, I know that Richard always has his laptop on hand. I can go and edit scene 2. Using the drop down, I can just select his MacBook and make sure that I've documented that he is going to be using that in this scene. So you can also jump to his character closet, which is just jumping to props. This is just auto scrolling us to the bottom of the page. And we can see everything that we've essentially tagged to Richard's closet. So this should look pretty familiar in terms of just being able to add or create a new prop, choose columns or display the fields that you're looking to have on the screen. But then you can also display personal props. So this is just taking that character closet one step further and being able to document details. Oftentimes you are trying to log hero items. This is kind of how you wrap character inventory. And we want to make this really easy in Crew Tools by just noting what we've marked as a hero item. We call this a personal prop, but it is really just making sure that we've got a green star to the left of this item. So for example, if we wanted to add the MacBook as a personal prop for Richard, we would just click into that item. We can come here and edit, and there will then be a little box where we can check off for personal. So I'll go ahead and save that. I'm just going to head back to Richard's page. We'll jump back down to props, and we can see that our MacBook is now a hero item or a personal prop for Richard. And if we wanted to just take a look at those personal props, it's easy to do so using that ellipsis icon in the middle. You can also create inventory from the inventory index as well, which we'll go ahead and cover here. Perfect. So I want to start out by just pointing out with the inventory index, regardless of where we're creating these props, whether it is on a scene, in a character like we just showed, perhaps right here by clicking the add button off to the right, that should look familiar now, or in the budget, all of your props will still just be listed here, and you can consider this a holistic list for your entire production or your entire season. So calling that out for people on episodics, I don't want you to think that you have to toggle in between each episode to find your inventory list. Regardless if you have all episodes selected or just one, this list will never change. So it's just nice to always have this kind of as your holistic view of everything that you're adding to the production. But a couple tips for navigating this page. Starting on the left, that choose columns icon that we see consistently, again, just giving you the ability to see specific fields of information you're adding. We can go ahead and search through your inventory list using the search bar or filter by closet or set. So let's say we wanted to go back and isolate Richard's closet, for example. This would pull in all the items we have logged to that character. Or if we wanted to just go back to our original list, we can exit his name. And then moving to the right, again, that add icon is just going to allow us to create a new prop. Otherwise, we have the ability to bulk update or update multiple items at once. So we can bulk update anything from character, category, status, storage location, wrap box, and disposition. So it makes it really, really convenient when you're trying to manage all of these pieces simultaneously when it comes time to wrap. And if you wanted to create these custom statuses or categories that I alluded to a few minutes ago, you would simply just click this ellipsis icon or this more icon, and you can go ahead and create custom statuses or categories. Now we start you out with a few recommendations, but you can always just click the trash can and add one to create your own. But again, this is just a great way to stay organized throughout your production. So if we wanted to, for example, maybe mark that these items are returned, we're getting closer to wrap and we want to just start letting people know when we've sent items back. We can select these items, bulk update them to return, click save. And because we allotted a specific color, it just gives us a nice visual to let us know what we've done with those items. And then if we wanted to pull in the status as a column, now we can see what's been returned and what's still in use. So just a few pointers for being able to manage this more efficiently throughout your production. But now that we've managed all of our inventory, we're getting closer to wrap, it's time for us to export some reports and give these to our production team in the studio. So I definitely recommend reaching out to our support team or our help center for insight into the various reports that we have available. But I did want to highlight a popular one that we see often, the Wrapbox report. Really, it's super easy to generate this from the reports tab. So whether you're using our wrap module or you're updating wrap boxes from the inventory index in bulk, you can select a wrap box, include your inventory photos, and it makes it really easy to simply generate that report where you can either just print it out and put it on the box physically, or you can always save it as a PDF and send electronically to the production team or your studio. But again, we've got reports to help from prep through wrap. So again, leverage our help center for more insight or more details on each report. And then the last tab we have on continuity is our gallery. So whether you are uploading mobile photos from, uploading photos from our mobile app, or you're adding them in bulk at the end of production, which is also a great option as well, they're all going to live in our gallery. So we've got untake photos here as a default, just to make sure no photos fall through the cracks and you're taking all of those accordingly. But you can also click this drop down to filter all photos by scene and then generate a custom report from here as well. So if you are looking to just capture all of your continuity photos by scene, this would be my recommendation for the best way to do so. And then you can just print based on the number of photos you want to see, if you want your notes displayed, and then that will go ahead and generate a report for you as well. And that does cover the continuity portion of our demo. So I'm going to jump into budgeting now and switch gears. So in order to jump up to budgeting, if we all remember, we're just using this product switcher in the top left. I can click budgeting. Normally it would ask you or prompt you to start or create your budget. I've already got one created for us to take a look at here. But the first thing we'll see at the top of the page is a running total of the items that we're tracking. This is broken out by the props that we've established, as well as any miscellaneous categories that we're tracking. So you can view your props by scene, and this is essentially pulling in any props that we've already created. So if you are adding props to a scene, they're going to filter into your budget automatically. Otherwise, if you wanted to start with your budget and create props from here, you can do so as well. So that's kind of the fourth and final way that you can add inventory in Crew Tools. So let's say that we're missing an office desk and we wanted to just type that in here. I can scroll to the right to add in a price point, and then I would just click the blue plus icon to the right of that. That's going to add that desk for us. It's going to update our price in real time, and it's going to create that inventory piece for us in Crew Tools. So let's say we added that desk. Now we want to go ahead and we just purchased it. We have all the receipt information here. I just want to add in some of these details right away. I can search from our universal search bar and just jump right into that inventory piece and add any photos or additional information that I'm trying to log. So that is definitely a really great workflow option if you're starting with the budget and entering props afterwards. Now, if you're tracking categories, which we chatted about a little bit from that inventory index, this will just list your props and segment the totals based on the groups that you create. And then finally, if you are tracking anything outside of an individual inventory piece, you can create custom categories. So we do start you out with recommendations like cleaning, expendables, supplies, etc. But you can always just click the X off to the left and then go ahead and create your own custom miscellaneous group. Lastly, you can certainly print a report. That is definitely important for budget. So you can either print from here, which is going to allow you to print by category. Otherwise, file print will allow you to print from individual scene view. But that is going to cover the demo portion in full for today's webinar. So we'll go ahead and switch gears and just jump into a quick slide to cover some best practices while we wait for some more people to fill in questions for our Q&A portion. Perfect. So just as a friendly reminder, I did want to kind of just drive home that if you are working on an episodic and you want to just remember that that inventory index is a holistic view of all of the items you create throughout the season. So no having to jump back and forth in between episodes. It's all right there for you on that inventory tab. Second is that photos can be uploaded in bulk, which we briefly covered on web, but I definitely recommend leveraging our mobile app, using that offline and being able to upload and tag photos right on set. And then third, if you are leveraging the budgeting tool, which we just closed out on, like to remind people that you can create items from the budget and they'll be carried over to continuity for you. That is a new feature we're really excited about, and I think it just helps, especially for everybody that starts right away with their budget. So just keep that in mind as you're building out inventory on your next production. Last but not least, I covered where you can find our help center, but it's support.synconset.com, and it's packed with so many great resources for self-learning. So definitely recommend bookmarking that as well. And we will go ahead and just give 1 or 2 more minutes here to wrap up people sending in questions for Q&A portion.
All right, thank you for that demo, Rachel, and thank you to everyone who has written in with a question so far. We've gotten a few, and we just want to give you another minute or two to write in with any last questions if you're thinking of anything. And while you're doing that, we want you to know that we're going to try to get to as many questions as we can, but if your question does not get answered live, please don't worry. We are recording all of the questions, and we will be sending out additional information following the webinar. So just give us another minute. Okay, it looks like we're getting some questions. So, Rachel, let's go ahead and get started with Q&A.
Perfect. Thanks, Natalie. So we've got some great questions in our queue here. Thanks so much for writing in. One is just in regards to admin and how many you can have per department. So, for example, if you wanted to have both the prop master and an onset key, you absolutely can do so. So, how it works in Crew Tools is you have a department head, which will essentially be able to add in additional members of your team. So, as a department head, you can add in your onset as a user based on the amount of users your subscription has available. But that is typically pretty easy to do. And then your onset would have ability to both the web as well as mobile version for uploading information. So, great question there. If your production has multiple seasons, can you access past seasons during the current season? Answer to that is yes. Yes, you absolutely can. If you have a previous season that's used Crew Tools before, what happens is that production goes into a read-only archive mode. So while it won't be available on the current production, you can't see like episodes from one season at the same time as from a previous season. But if you wanted to access the previous season for continuity purposes, we do have that in a read-only mode. So great question there. And then let's see here. This is a good one. So can we generate daily prop reports? What are needed by that day? So I think that the inventory index is actually a great way to get creative in tracking something like this. So for example, and let me see if I can jump back into continuity and share my screen again. Okay, hopefully everybody should see that we're back on the inventory tab of Crew Tools. Just to repeat the question, it is, can we generate like a daily props report for what we need that day? And this is probably the best way to do so, where you can leverage a custom category type or a custom status. So if you wanted to mark off what you're going to be needing based on that day, you would be able to create a custom status or category, and then you can essentially check off those items. And then using this ellipsis in the middle, you can also export this to a CSV or a PDF. So this is also a really great way. So for example, if you're tracking assets and you wanted to just mark like, yes, this is an asset, and your studio saying we need an asset list at the end of production, being creative in how you can customize reports from this inventory tab is going to be very, very helpful. So I think that would be a great way to just be able to track what you need as far as like a daily report of inventory. This is another great question. How do you add photos? So we talked about in the webinar that you have the ability to add photos from both our website as well as our mobile app. But just a quick overview on this from the website. If you are adding photos in bulk, which is typically how people will do this from the website, if you're doing more one by one, doing it via mobile is a little easier. But if you just click add photos, it's going to pull up this pop-up where you can then select files, or you can just pull in a full folder. So if you're already kind of organizing these in a folder on your own, it's really easy to just pull these folders into Crew Tools. And then you can go ahead and add a tag from here. So if you're pulling in a folder that had all of your scene one continuity photos, you can just upload it from here, mark it to scene one. Or if you upload them as untagged photos, you can kind of have them all populate here and then tag them from the gallery, which is super simple. You're just clicking tag, this tag icon in blue, selecting your photo or photos. You can tag more than one. You'd click tag again, and then you can search for your scenes, characters, inventory pieces. You can track to multiple places at one time as well. So a great option if you are starting to tag on the website. And then let's see here. Let's see some of the other questions that have been coming in. Thanks everyone for writing. All of these are great. Oh, so this is a good one. How to track rentals. I think this is a question that we get a lot, so I definitely want to cover it on here. Again, on that inventory index, we do have, I think I have it listed here, but we have start and end dates. So if you are using a status or a category to mark if it's a rental, you can add in the rental dates that you have as well. So that becomes really helpful in being able to just understand, especially closer to wrap when you're trying to juggle all of these dates and make sure everything's returned accordingly. These are just various fields that you can kind of use to track this information. So we do have a start and end date available there. Let's see here. This is a question from a different department, but I think really also widely asked, but if you are in set deck, how you're able to use these kind of interdepartmentally. So I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that if you are on a shared production, so if, a lot of our users may work with props and set decks teams kind of synonymously or collectively, if you're added into props or set deck, you can actually be added as a user into both departments. And that will just give you the ability to see both departments' information at one time. So even if you are working with other departments, you can have access to both just so it's easier to manage that information. Oh, this is also a really good question. So with props, obviously you have props you're adding to a specific character closet, which we covered on our webinar. But what if that prop is being used by another character in a scene? And we want to have a way to document this or track this, especially for continuity purposes. We do have on our scene view, which I will use universal search to jump back into scene 101. Point one, scene 101.1. But if we scroll down to that inventory table, I mentioned that we've got, the closet that the item belongs to, use notes or continuity notes, how is it being used in that scene? But then we also have used by. So for example, if I choose columns and used by is at the bottom, we can kind of move this around too and just make it a little bit easier for us to see. But I think what's good to point out is, okay, we've got a continuity note. Josh rides this bicycle. We can also mark this in used by. So this is a really great way to just mark who is using these props. It makes continuity a little bit easier to manage. But that's a great question, and being able to understand the difference between what or where does this prop belong to, who does this belong to, and who is leveraging this prop or who is using this prop in the particular scene. Another question regarding script uploads. Who uploads scripts and updates the information with script changes? Typically with updating this information, it kind of depends on the type of account that you've set up with us. I mentioned that we have something called a shared breakdown, and I'll just jump to the scene index for a visual here. But when you're on a shared breakdown, it means that you have multiple departments leveraging all of the scene information unanimously. So with that type of a account setup, it's generally someone from production that is uploading the scripts, helping to ensure the shoot dates are accurate and up to date, uploading revisions if there's been any script modifications. So if you are working on an account where there's multiple departments leveraging this information, that's typically already being handled. But like I said, if you're using this a la carte and you're a single production using Crew Tools, we do have a specific webinar that dives into how to upload a script and how to break that down and make sure all of the scene information and character information are sorted out accurately. So again, I would reference our help center for that webinar. All right, I think that looks like all of the questions we have time for today. Let's see. Natalie, do you have any closing remarks before we wrap up officially?
Yes, I do. Just give me 1 second, and we're going to jump back to our slides. All right. Everybody should be seeing our support information. And thank you to everyone who submitted questions. There were quite a few questions coming in as we were getting through some of those Q&A. So please keep an eye out in your email. We will be sending out answers to anybody that we didn't get to live, along with additional information about the webinar. So if we didn't get to your question, or if you happen to think to something outside of today's webinar, please know that you can always reach out to us. We have multiple ways to do so. You can send us a chat while you're logged into the website. As Rachel showed you, it's located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and that will give you direct access to our support team Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. They are actually live people on the other end, and they are very happy to answer your questions. So please reach out to us. You can also send an email to our support team. You can do that at support@synconset.com, or you can give us a call if you'd like to chat with someone on the phone. You can call us again, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we'd be happy to answer questions. And outside of those hours, if you think of anything that you would like to check our support site for, we do have help articles on pretty much everything you could think of. You can do that by visiting the support site, which is www.support.synconset.com. And there you will find our help articles and the recordings of our webinars, and just lots of great resources for you. All right, and now that we've covered all of the info, I'd like to say again, thank you to everyone who took the time to join us today. We hope that this was really beneficial in explaining to you the basics of SyncOnSet Crew Tools, continuity, and budgeting. And if you don't mind, we would love it if you could please complete the feedback survey once this webinar has concluded, so we know how we did and if you have any suggestions about how we can improve in the future. And please, speaking of the future, sign up for our future webinars. We will be producing new content each month, and we design these just for you so you can learn how to use our products and get the most out of the experience. So we would love to have you join us in the future. All right, and with that, we are going to wrap up things today. So please, everyone, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you again for coming to join our webinar.